Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Talking Siege. We're here to chat about Rainbow Six and all kinds of other stuff happening in the Rainbow Six scene, whether that is community, whether it is game updates and esports, of course. It's me, Dev Martyr, Sky, and Cthulhu, our regular crew here, and we also have joining us a very special guest from the ANZ community, from the ANZ scene. One of the newest players into the Rainbow Six Pro League. It is Thumbnail from Rhythm. Thumbnail, how are you going?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing very well, thanks. I'm really elated to have you on the show as well because we haven't really talked to you guys a lot about your run through the Challenge League, through Six Masters last season. We're going to touch on a lot of that in the episode tonight, but first we're going to talk just a little bit about Shifting Tides. Now, Shifting Tides is the newest season to be released in Rainbow Six Siege. It hasn't come out yet. We're getting very close. There's been a technical test server happening in the last few weeks, and let's go over some of the things that might have changed in case you've been out of the loop. So there is a designer's notes that has been released by Ubisoft Production, summarizing some of the changes. We've got the Boss G, that slug shotgun now has an ACOG. The meme is real, it is alive. You can play it on the test server, and before too long you'll be able to play it on the live build too. Some minor nerfs and buffs to Cav's M12, the FO12, which is Ella's shotgun, and the sausage, the SASG from the Spetsnaz shotgun. Warden also gets a C4 now instead of barbed wire, so it's a bit better for Plantinal. But let's talk about some of the big hitters. We've got Glaz, and some changes to how his scope's working. Obviously, there was a nerf a little while back where the heat sensitive, like that yellow outline of his scope was tied to his movement, and now the base level of that visibility of the yellow is increased quite substantially. So he's going to be a little bit more viable now. Talking on Cade though, we mentioned him before. He is going to get an increase in the radius of his electrical. You can see the graphic on screen for those watching. It's quite a significant increase. I'm not sure the exact measurement. It's there you go, 1.3 meters up from 0.75. So it's not quite double, but it's quite up there, and that should, in some cases, really allow you to electrify a lot more. Especially as he is losing his impacts for barbed wire, which will get affected by the electric claw. We've got Jackal, some changes happening with him just to how the pings work. It's been tested out on the test server, and now the older the footprint, the less pings you get. And we'll see how that affects Jackal. You know, he's banned a lot in ranked, and I'll be interested to see whether he continues to get banned quite so much. And the big thing that everyone's talking about is limb penetration. So now there is a new system implemented into the game. Different weapons have different levels of penetration. Basically what this means is that if an operator is flashed by a flashbang, they put their hand up in front of their face, a bullet hits their hand, it will actually travel through their hand and be a headshot if it hits them in the face, if that line of sight lines up. So a big change. It's quite a bit more complicated than I'm making it sound, but if you want to learn more, there's a great video from Rogue9 where he rigorously tested it. So I highly recommend you go to the Rogue9 YouTube channel and check that out. But there's all kinds of changes that I haven't mentioned here for Shifting Tides. You can get it all at Rainbow 6, the number 6.ubisoft.com. It's the latest news story, so it's definitely worth talking about. But at Shifting Tides, you can get your hands on it yourself in the next few days. 2 new operators, Wamai and Kali, should be very exciting, as well as a rework of our favorite map, Theme Park. So keep your eyes peeled on that one. But Sky, we got so much else to talk about. Why don't you kick us off?
We do, Dev. We've got a lot to talk about with our wonderful guest, Thumbnail from Rhythm. I guess we'll start off, Thumbnail. Is it possible for you to sort of introduce yourself for people that maybe aren't aware of who you are, and maybe give a brief intro to your team as well?
I'm Thumbnail. My name's Patrick. I'm the IGL and Flex player for Rhythm, who just qualified for Rainbow Six Pro League. Yeah.
Nice. So I guess we're sort of going to start this story all the way at the beginning, where I think most people that have been keeping an eye on the competitive scene within the ANZ region probably would have seen you guys, and that's going to be at the Six Masters at the Melbourne Esports Open. I guess for a team, that was your first LAN experience, I believe for every player on the team. Sort of, what did you learn, a lot of players sort of obviously want to make their way to a LAN, and you always hear about players talking about LANs and how much experience they gain from them, and how especially the game is so much different on land to that of what it is online. So I guess sort of coming firsthand from you, what did you sort of learn at MEO? And yeah.
Well, yeah, the game's pretty different. Like everything felt a lot more responsive. Help with the PCs were insane, but the biggest thing was like getting to meet everyone and including your teammates and like the rest of the community was a big deal. It was a really big deal for us. And yeah, even though we got smashed, we learned a lot just about, I don't know, just ourselves and other teams.
Nice.
It seems like that kind of helped you a lot because moving in, obviously, Six Masters, it was an actual season, and you guys had to fight for your way to get that spot at LAN, and then coming off of that, you had to play through the Challenger League. You played in Challenger League last season as well. Weren't quite so successful. Didn't go quite as well as you'd hoped, but I think that it's really a highlight to me looking at teams, especially teams in ANZ, and it's quite a significant deal if you see a team that goes from Challenger League one season and really tries their hardest and sticks around all the way through Six Masters into the next season. You know, it's been a long time since Rhythm actually started and since you've been playing it at this level, and finally you kind of made your break here making Pro League. What's that journey like, and what does it take to kind of be dedicated enough to stick around through those setbacks?
Yeah, it was definitely really tough. I think the first CL season I played last season, we went 2-0-8. We won two maps out of 10, so it's pretty terrible. It's pretty hard to stay dedicated and like keep sticking with the game. But we ended up making some roster changes and try to like refresh the team, like try to have a new start pretty much with like 3 core members, me, Unit, and Wayne, and just continue on like working on fundamentals and just try to get as good as we are.
Yeah. And now that pretty much CL is over, you guys kind of achieved one of your first few milestones as to making the Pro League. What were kind of the key points that you ended up learning on your way here, and like what was the kind of the surprising outcome out of all of it?
I guess that if you have the right attitude and you have like the right focus, you can go pretty far in the game. Like it's the same. We're the same roster that came last in CL, and then we end up making Pro League coming first. Like that doesn't say anything about how a good attitude and commitment does to like improve a team. Then I don't know what else does. So yeah.
I guess on that note, you mentioned your first season of Challenge League where, you won 2 maps out of 10. And obviously that's not the best performance. I guess coming into this most recent season of Challenge League that you noted that you actually placed first in, what were your sort of expectations going into that season? Were you a bit unsure of how things were going to play out, or were you feeling really confident?
We were pretty confident. Like we expected to get top 2 for sure. Going to CL quals, we kind of had a bit of a rough go in some of the qualifiers, but we ended up, before we actually came into the CL season, we were looking pretty good in scrims or whatever. The way we thought about it, like there were only like 3 teams, so we just needed to be top 2 out of 3. It was like us, Homeless, and Cryptic were like the 3 big teams that got in challenge. We're going to be like going for that spot. So with that, just looking at that, we thought we had a pretty good chance. Just had to beat Cryptic or Homeless.
You make it sound easy, but it definitely wasn't getting to that. I mean, we didn't have you guys locked in. Like you said, you managed to end up at the top of the Challenge League, which is a huge deal. But that didn't happen overnight. That was a really slow process, and it was all the way up until the last match of the Challenge League that you actually managed to secure that. Now,
last round.
Yeah, exactly. And we have that round here. And I would very much like to play this round for people watching. What I'm going to do, Thumbnail, is I'm going to play this clip. We're going to watch it together, and then we're going to go back afterwards. And I'm interested to hear kind of what the thought process was of the team, because obviously it wasn't you who was one of those last players alive. But I want to kind of get some of an idea from you of kind of this match as a whole. So we're going to play this clip.
For this retake 3v2, all the attackers at a very low health.
Yeah, both of the attackers are very low, but same goes for Jam. JC is the only one that is on full health right now. If they have the C4, they need to go in from below.
Oh, and another Jaeger comes in. Sledge, the only one remaining. He's not. He's gonna spot the Jaeger out. Is he aware of the position? he doesn't have just one shot and he's gonna be taken out. And Cryptic! Do they have enough time? They don't!
Wait, they don't.
They don't have enough time. Rhythm
Unit. They did it.
is gonna come out with the win.
So, man, that was actually one of the most closest rounds I've seen in a really, 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 really long time. And it was the round to get you guys the draw, which is what you needed to then secure that final spot. You needed at least that 1 point, and then you would be right at the top of the Challenge League standing. I know that you weren't in this round in the clip, but run through with me like what happened in this clip and kind of how did we get there throughout the whole series where you guys lost the first map and were just fighting for a draw on the second map. Kind of run it through the whole process coming into this match, knowing that you had to play Cryptic, who was your biggest threat in the Challenge League.
Yeah, so going into the game, we were actually pretty confident, like going double bank. Bank's been like a really strong map for us in the past, so we didn't expect to lose it 7-1 at all. So I guess losing that first map was like really tough for us. Like just mentally losing what should be your strongest map against a team that you need to beat. It's pretty bad. But going to the second map, obviously went all the way to the wire. And this round, we started off pretty good in this round. So we took like upstairs for free. We opened up the wall. It was 5v5. And we were setting up for a plant when I think it was Serum or something made a play, got 2 kills, which is where we see where the round starts here. Obviously we had upstairs control, and we got pretty lucky with Leb pulling off the plant and getting the picks and the people rotating through the door in the rotate hole. Managed to get the plant down, and Unit clutched it up in the 1v2, just getting the down of the person defusing. So yeah, it was pretty close, very very nerve-wracking.
Yeah, and a very unorthodox round in that it didn't end by one team just killing all the other team. Even in a post-plant scenario, as you said, it was, I mean, Unit kind of clutched the round. I know I don't want to diminish everything else that happened in the round, but kind of in those last few seconds, it was a 2 versus 1. Cryptic did, in theory, have the advantage, but there was only a couple seconds left. They rotate one player upstairs to take out and pressure the sledge. But Unit just landed the one bullet that was needed onto Jam while he was defusing, and it didn't even kill him, it just got the injure, and that's why you could hear, I mean, Cthulhu, you were casting this, you and Tech, and I could hear you guys were kind of gobsmacked. It took a few seconds for the cogs to turn, and you'd realize, oh damn, they don't have enough time to defuse, despite being in a 2 versus 0. So, I mean, Thumbnail, like, at what point did everything kind of erupt in the Discord or the TeamSpeak when you guys realized, went from thinking we've just got destroyed 7-1 on Bank, we're trying Bank again and it's been really hard, we're on match point against us, we have to get this round, and it comes down to a situation like that. Like, at what point did the switch flip in the Discord call and you guys realized you're in the Pro League?
I mean, it wasn't really that. It was kind of bittersweet, to be honest. Like, because first of all, people didn't actually realize we won the round for like till a few seconds later, because well, I knew because I was spectating, but some people were on like drones and stuff, so they didn't know. They just saw that Unit died, and it's like they thought we lost the game. So it wasn't like an immediate reaction, because like half of us knew that we won the game, half of us didn't. And then so it took a few seconds to actually realize that we made Pro League, and then after that, it's kind of bittersweet because it was a really tough game. Like we didn't win the game. Yeah, like we lost and we drew, even though we made Pro League. It's like it's hard to feel really good about a loss. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting position to be in going into the Pro League next season, knowing that you made it only just through. But I guess that's the same story what Cryptic happened last season, where they only barely knocked out Homeless. And I think you sound like you're a bit shy because you guys didn't beat Cryptic here. You feel like you didn't necessarily earn it, but you guys did have a really good match against Homeless earlier in the season, and it was that result and your consistency of results through the season that actually earned you that spot, that first place in the Challenge League. So
yeah, I think we definitely deserved it just with a really strong season, but in the moment it didn't feel as good as like you would probably expect from a making Pro League. Like making Six Masters was a much bigger reaction. Check out WarmoJ's Twitter, you can see that.
yeah.
I still actually remember that clip. It always brings a tear to my eye seeing like these kinds of videos.
It's always great to see teams like post their team comms after they make like a big LAN or big event. And yeah, like I remember observing this round, and like for most of the map, normally I listen to music while I observe. Like at this round, I turned the music off. Like I went like full tunnel vision into the game. And like I remember my mum came and she's like, "You need to go to bed." I'm like, "Mum, I've got some business to deal with. We've got the biggest challenge league game right here." And yeah, she understood. And wow, what a game! What a game!
Mom brought the camera.
Yeah, I suppose you could say that.
So I mean that's kind of where you guys have been so far. That's what Rhythm's accomplishments, Melbourne Esports Open, even though you had an early exit there, and Challenge League, even though it was such a tough season. But maybe there's a bit to talk about, kind of what comes next. You know, what's happening at the moment for the team. And I don't know, Cthulhu, maybe this is a good opportunity to kind of meant to talk about what you wanted to talk about, which was the Six Invitational Qualifiers. Did you want to spearhead that one?
Yeah. So for those who haven't really tuned in, or maybe were living under a rock, recently during this weekend that we had the Six Invitational Open qualifiers happen for ANZ region, and we saw so far 3 teams qualify for this. So first came on the seeding Homeless, then Read My Aggression or RMA on second, and then Vanquish on third. And Thumbnail, your team was playing out in the top bracket where you eventually ended up playing against Homeless. But between your game, I just switched over to Twitch chat and I'm seeing Leb already having a few issues about this very topic. But I know it's a bit of a tough one. But I have a question. I'm still very much curious. What was the difference between your initial matchup against what I believe was bear with me for a moment, I'll get the graphic up, which was Arch Enemy Gaming, and then your match against Homeless, because there was a slight switch up in the roster, and then it kind of just went completely 180. Could you maybe give a couple comments in that regard?
Well, we're playing with Yoshi to start off with because Wayne had to work in the first match, so he's our coach. He played pretty well. Obviously, Arch Enemy isn't as strong as a team as Homeless or RMA are, so that's probably the main reason for the difference in performance. Just between like our performance in this and Challenger League, we definitely didn't have the best showing at all. It's gonna have to change some things. It's a good time to have like a bit of a slump because we've got like quite a long time before Pro League. We probably weren't expecting to beat Fnatic anyway, so it doesn't really like matter too much to us. So yeah, just gotta try and improve, try and fix the problems that we have, and get back to where we were in CL, for most of CL anyway, and Six Masters.
Fair enough.
I guess that does beg the question about your match against RMA though. I think that, you know, Homeless and you guys, obviously you did get really much closer results. In fact, you had a better head-to-head round result against them in Challenger League. Then you went 7-1 against them. I think Homeless is a team that has been developing quite a lot, so you can't kick yourselves too much. But RMA, Read My Aggression, that was a team that wasn't as much of a threat to you in the Challenge League, and yet they knocked you out of this bracket. You know, what happened?
Yeah, we're just playing really bad. I don't know. They definitely improved as well. They picked up, I don't know if he's trialing or whatever, but they were playing with Shaq. He seems to be doing quite a lot for them. I think Bundy retired. Yeah, I think for a lot of Challenger League, we could pretty much go through it just by counter-banning teams. Just like playing maps that we knew they couldn't really play. Because a lot of teams had a pretty limited map pool. So for our RMA game, we took them to Coastline twice. Because we knew that they didn't want to they wouldn't play any other maps. Or that they didn't even want to play Coastline, but just with the way the previous map bans went, we knew we could get a map they don't want. So that's one of the reasons why we won so convincingly against them in CL. But in this, it's a combination of them being on a more confident map for them, Consulate, and just us not showing up.
Fair enough. I have another question. Since it was meant to be that 3 teams will qualify for the close qualifiers, what other teams were you expecting to kind of get close or even just qualify for the close quals? So seeing there's, like, I would imagine you guys were really pretty much expecting yourselves to qualify for it. What would be like the third pick for you prior to the open quals happening?
I'd say RMA. The Vanquish team is a bit of a pug team. Like they're good players, but it's always a bit of a question mark. You can't really expect. You don't know what to expect from them until they actually play.
Yeah, actually, on the topic of Vanquish, as like whenever they when they played and I ended up casting one of their games, it was kind of like it felt to me that they are a dark horse within this whole competition. Do you reckon that them being kind of that, like you call pug team, do you reckon that this played into their kind of element of surprise, you could say, to a certain degree, the fact that they managed to actually qualify for the close quals?
Yeah, definitely. Like they can be having a pug team that's like got like some really good gunners can definitely be hard to play against. It's more when they get to like actual competitions and they have to be more consistent in a long tournament. That's when most like pug sort of teams fall short. But in qualifiers, they're definitely dangerous. Like you can't underestimate teams like that.
Would you say that because they made a pug team just because they wanted to have fun and they didn't really, well, possibly didn't really care about what will be the outcome? Do you reckon this is what also made them quite dangerous and kind of unpredictable?
Yeah, 100%. If you play like you have nothing to lose, then it just like amplifies the aggression that pug teams have. Just play like they do whatever they want, pretty much, and sometimes it works.
Okay.
You noted that a big part of the way that your team works is a lot, especially in Challenge League. You said how you really look into teams' maps, and try to note the maps that they aren't so good at, and obviously the maps they are good at. Do you think that you sort of already noted on this, but do you think that that's sort of a really big weakness for you guys when you come to these sort of qualifier tournaments where the bracket sort of only gets released, 10 minutes before the tournament? It sort of makes that preparation a lot more difficult. Do you feel that sort of played a big part in why you guys are maybe so weak this tournament?
I wouldn't say it's that big of a part. I think the main thing was just us playing bad, but I say it's more like we did better in Challenger League than because of that. It's like we should have been able to win. We should have been able to make top 3 regardless, in my opinion. It's more a matter of like it maybe amplified that, but yeah.
Well, I guess you do have quite a bit of time now before the Pro League begins, where you guys can kind of go back and work on those kind of more fundamental issues that you said maybe made you struggle in this tournament. And I guess a part of what you can do during that time is enjoy the close qualifiers this coming weekend. So a lot of your close rivals, in fact, pretty much all of the teams that are playing in the Pro League next season, well, except for Wildcard, will be competing in that tournament. So is there anything, I guess, that I mean, Sky and Cthulhu, is there anything you guys wanted to kind of talk about in regards to close qualifiers thumbnail? Is there anything in particular that you're going to be looking out for at the qualifiers themselves?
Obviously Fnatic, with their roster changes, it'd be really good to see how they perform. I think we're going to talk about it later though. So it'll be, I think there's a lot of teams with roster changes that I'm guessing I can't really say much about, but it'll be good to see. It'll be interesting to see how they shape up against each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, because it's like the first chance we're actually going to get to see them competing against each other. It'll be a good way to see how the preseason's gone for everyone.
Yeah, I'm actually quite curious to see how will the 3 teams that actually qualified from the open calls, how will they perform really? Mainly, probably Homeless, as the ones that like they have currently that big kind of whole storyline going that they've missed out.
I think we lost Cthulhu. He's dialing in all the way from Russia, so can't really blame him for having some issues. I'm impressed that we've gone this far. I guess let's continue. Maybe we'll come back to the closed qualifier discussion back later on when you mentioned we talk about Fnatic. So Sky, is there anything that you wanted to
roster change and how well within a shorter?
It's like, hey Cthulhu, just so you know, you cut out for like 30 seconds before. So we kind of missed basically everything you said. What I was saying, Cthulhu, is how about if you want to talk about close calls, maybe what we're going to do is we'll finish off talking about kind of this other stuff. We'll come back to close calls maybe after when we talk about Fnatic roster changes, and then you can bring up that point. Sound good? Cool. All right. So Sky, is there kind of other stuff you wanted to pick thumbnails brains on about, let's say, the Pro League next season?
Yeah, so I guess we can sort of go into the future. You sort of mentioned at the start of Challenger League that you guys were quite confident and you felt that a top two placing was something that was certainly within range. I guess now going into Pro League, which is obviously the highest level of competition here in ANZ, sort of, I guess, first, what are your expectations for Pro League? Where do you think you'll place? How do you think other teams will do? And secondly, how are you going to prepare for Pro League? Are you going to prepare for Pro League in the same way that you sort of prepared for Challenger League, or have you sort of learnt things from Challenger League that maybe you'll do differently for Pro League?
In terms of how we're expecting to go, well, our aim is for the first season just to avoid that relegation spot. We're not expecting to compete against Oddity, Fnatic, and Wildcard for APAC finals. Like, it'd be nice to be there, but I don't know if it's going to happen this season. In terms of what we're going to focus on, I guess our fundamentals is trying to be more consistent and like really just work on our strengths instead of what's been happening recently, which I think we've been getting a bit stagnant. Just trying to stay fresh, trying to always work on ourselves and just improve as much as we can before PL.
Nice. Yeah, I think that answers my question pretty well. Cthulhu or Dev, do you guys have any more input?
Look, I'm happy to go on, talk about the roster changes, then we can kind of come back to a lot of this other stuff later, because I think we'll have a lot more context and we can kind of take a big picture look at what's happening in the world. So obviously Fnatic is the thing that everyone wants to talk about. I'm going to leave them till last to keep you guys waiting. So, well, firstly, there's been obviously a lot of roster changes all over the world. We touched on last week, G2 picked up Kryne in place of Goga, and NA, like, I don't think I could summarize NA's roster changes if I had like a 2-hour segment to talk about it. So we're going to just go with what's happened in the last week. So one of the big notable ones is Evil Geniuses has had a bit of changes as well. So Geometrics, who's been on EG for quite a long time, he's now moved over to TSM, Team Solo Mid, and honestly I think a lot of people are getting a bit scared of TSM. They're looking to be a very, very strong roster coming into next season. And on the Evil Geniuses side, with Geometrics departing, Gotcha is going to be rejoining the team. So Gotcha used to be the coach of this team. He subbed in for a Pro League game or two, then he went over to TSM to coach and then played, and now he's back to EG, but this time as a player. And Ranger, who was formerly of Rogue, is also joining the Evil Geniuses roster as their coach. Now, boys, the team that was once the North American team and now looks, I don't know, like it's starting to look a little bit unrecognizable. What do we think about kind of the future state of Evil Geniuses and I guess TSM to some extent as well?
I feel like
personal. Oh yeah, you go ahead.
I feel like people are kind of over-exaggerating at the impact of the EG change. Like, ever since I lost Canadian, the biggest thing has been like they seem kind of uncoordinated, not really like working together. And maybe having Gotcha, who I'm pretty sure is the IGL on TSM, coming in could actually help that. But at the same time, losing Geo is like a massive thing for them. So yeah, he's such a good player.
Yeah, I mean, that said, what Gotcha subbed in for Geo like during the last Pro League season, I think that was the match where they 7-1'd or 7-0'd. I think it was Luminosity. There was a really, really dominant match. So, I mean, Gotcha is a really, really strong player. And like, I'm with you. I feel like this isn't a sign that EG is going downhill. I think people have already acknowledged that EG is not quite what they used to be. And I think instead of kind of just dipping their toe in the water and saying, oh, we'll try and change one thing and see how it goes, they're like, okay, let's just like, from the ground up, we know what we want. Like, let's just work until we can get that.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm not yet fully sold on that change for EG because, like you guys mentioned, Geo, very strong one. Plus, in TSM, this will be a huge upgrade. Whereas I'm kind of like 50-50. It's an upgrade and I feel a somewhat of a downgrade, just because downgrade-wise, Gotcha, at least in my eyes, still hasn't shown as much of a showcase. Yes, he did manage to show some promise whenever he would be subbing in for Geo, but as a coach, yeah, he will be good. As a player, I'm not yet there, but bringing in a Ranger from Rogue as an extra coach, so essentially, technically, you have kind of two coach minds on your team, that's definitely should help. at least with coordinating or just getting just a better idea about how do they approach certain issues.
Yeah, I was watching an interview a few weeks ago, and it was with the CEO of Evil Geniuses about another esports title, and it was all about sort of roster changes and how they sort of as an organization deal with them. And I found it really interesting, and you can see that they clearly they don't just sort of make impulse decisions, but they have sort of a lot of thought behind these things. So I guess after sort of listening to that, I do sort of have some faith in these changes, and hopefully, they do work out for EG.
So what I might do is blitz through the rest of the North American changes, and then if there's anything you guys want to touch on, then we can, and if not, then we'll just move straight on to Fnatic, which I know everyone wants to talk about. So
the sauce.
Yeah, exactly. So another big one mainly for the players. Is that Tempo, which is a North American organization, has acquired the Two-Faced roster, who were recently promoted from the Challenge League into the Pro League. So that's hugely exciting for those players. And obviously we don't know the details of their agreement, but hopefully for them that really means they can kind of enter that professional scene, start becoming professional players. Because the word pro in Pro League doesn't actually necessarily mean that you can sustain yourself on an income. And especially in North America, that's something that is definitely possible in the North American Pro League. A lot of these North American teams are doing very well for themselves. So, it's big ups to the formerly Two-Face, now Tempo roster. Another change that's happened, and we talked about Rogue before with Ranger. Rogue, after being relegated into the Challenger League, they don't really exist anymore. Rogue was a team full of star players with years upon years of experience, the US Nationals titles, runners-up at Pro League finals past, and a lot of LAN experience. So Slashug, who's been one of their really good players for a really long time, he's now been picked up by Luminosity Gaming, and in place of Tomaz, who was previously on the roster. So this is, I think, quite exciting if you're an LG fan. They came out of the gate really well, started last Pro League, but then maybe didn't quite have as much of an impact at the end of the season as I think people wanted. Anything you guys want to touch on with Luminosity, Rogue, even Tempo?
I think it'll be pretty good for Luminosity having like a more experienced player. It'll be good to see how they go.
Yeah, rein in the young guns. But okay, let's do it. Let's talk about Fnatic. So there were rumors floating around for quite some time, but we didn't want to discuss things until they were finalized. So it is quite a big deal that Fnatic, the most accomplished Australian team in Rainbow Six, has made some significant roster changes. They're only going to have 3 out of 5 core players from last season, as they say farewell to Rizraz, who's been playing ever since he joined off of Corvidae. He was on previously, way back in season 6.
The memories.
After the season 6 APAC finals, where Corvidae were eliminated by then Irons, the team that ended up taking first place in APAC, and Fnatic, then called Mindfreak, were eliminated by Mantis, who is now Cloud9. Rizraz switched over off of Corvidae onto Mindfreak and ended up playing with them for how many? 2 invitationals and however many Pro League finals and majors. So this is quite a big deal for Rizraz, who's been on that team and such an integral part of it for a really long time. And Specker, who was the newest player on Fnatic, is also departing from the roster. He joined just about a year ago. It was actually a bit less than a year ago, I believe, because he played with Darkside in the Summer Series. So Specker's been on the team for a little while, joined following suit of Virtue, who also played previously on a team with Specker. Specker spent a long time as the 6th player on the bench, and then jumped in for a couple Pro League games this season, also jumped in for the Six Masters finals, where he, alongside the rest of the team, managed to take the championship over what's now Wildcards. That was a big deal. But obviously Fnatic fell short at the APAC finals, losing out to Airwolf. And then, speaking of Airwolf, we have Mentalist for a huge move in the ANZ scene and the APAC scene as a whole. We do have, once again, a player moving into regional from Singapore. Mentalist has been living in Singapore. There was a big ruckus made about how he wasn't able to continue playing professionally while living in Singapore due to his life situation. He would have had to keep studying if he was living in Singapore. It's very hard to study while playing professionally. So he's actually moving to Australia to play with Fnatic, and hopefully we'll be playing this weekend. And alongside Mentalist, we'll also have Tex, previously of Team Sinister. You might know him under the name Copper and Back. he's been a staple in the ANZ Pro League scene for quite a few seasons, playing for Sinistar and its previous iterations as well. Guys, now that I've given that bit of a blurb, man, where do you want to start? Where do you want to kick this off?
Look, probably I'd say the big one, the Mentalist move, which is essentially the second roster change that is intercontinental.
Within APAC, there have been
yeah,
others,
within it's within APAC, yeah, but it's the first one. It's the second one that goes from Southeast Asia to ANZ. Previous one was
Shinbagel.
the almighty Shinbagel to Corvidae, which I'd rather not touch up just yet. But yeah, this is big. This is big, and big ups for Mentalist actually making it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I guess it's a really interesting move, and yeah, like again, massive props to Mentalist, who, obviously it's looking like at one stage he would have to quit playing Siege, but to see him be able to continue on is obviously really exciting. But yeah, like it's really down to business now for Fnatic. They've got the closed qualifiers happening this weekend, and I guess in that aspect, they're gonna, to every other team, they are gonna be a dark horse. And to us as well, nobody has seen these guys play in an official. So, I mean, obviously everyone's sort of assuming that they'll be insane out the gate. And I think that's probably a fair assumption. But, there's also the other side, could this fail? Yeah, and you'd certainly hope not. But, that's certainly a possibility. And especially when this is sort of the last chance for Fnatic to grasp it at the Six Invitational. There really has to be no messing around for these guys. They've just got to pretty much streak through the closed qualifiers, until which they'll move on to the APAC LAN. And that is going to be no easy feat either. They're going to have to verse the likes of Nora Rango, Cloud9, really, really scary teams.
Yeah, I feel like there'd be people out there who think, oh, well, Fnatic's changed out 2 of their players, only 3 out of 5 core from last season. They're going to have to really rework a lot of their strategies. There's going to be so much for Mentalists and Techs to learn, and it really could go wrong. But I think at the same time, like you said the word dark horse. It's really a huge opportunity for Fnatic to come out of the gate with incredibly experienced, incredibly good, strong individual players who have a lot of LAN experience, a lot of high-level team experience to really make an impact. Now, Thumbnail, you're one of the guys down there in the trenches competing in these games, fighting tooth and nail, Challenger League, now Pro League. In your professional view, what do you think that this new Fnatic is going to look like, and how do you think they're going to perform?
Well, it's kind of hard to predict this if you haven't seen them play, but obviously Mentalist is a really strong pickup. Like, I don't think anyone can doubt that after his performance at Japan. Copper's more of a question mark for me. Like, he's always been a really strong performer for Sinister, but he's not like as notable as someone like Specker was back before he joined Fnatic. And yeah, it's more of a risky pickup, I think. I think he'll probably do well. Like, Fnatic know what they're doing, but it'll be interesting how he goes in a international setting. Just with them being like less experienced, not having as much practice or whatever. They've been in the 3-week boot camp or something, so they should be pretty set for the invitational quals, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess Fnatic do have the advantage of being full-time, whereas you can talk about how long it takes to really get your skills to the point and practice enough as a team that you can develop a long map pool and catch up on everything that you need to. Obviously, that takes a really long time, but Fnatic have the advantage of being able to kind of speed track that compared to other ANZ teams because they have so much time that they can spend playing, and also because they have these face-to-face boot camps like they did in Japan recently. We've got Virtue in chat saying that Tex is going to be his young prodigy. So, I mean, we talked a lot previously about how it was always a race between Virtue and Specker who can find the most frags. Let's be honest, it was never a race. Virtue was always coming out on top. Now, I reckon Copper's a guy who could give Virtue a run for his money. Tex, I should say, is a guy who can give Virtue a run for his money. But I think, I agree with you, Thumb. He's the guy that needs to prove himself here. How do we see these close qualifiers going now that we've kind of talked about Fnatic? Obviously this is a huge opportunity for them, and Sky, you mentioned this is their last chance to get to the Six Invitational. They chose not to go to the OGA Pit Minor, where the prize is Invitational. This is the last chance. What do you guys think?
I think they'll win it. Um, Oddie's always like up there with them, but yeah, I think with the new roster changes, they'll be pretty energized. They'll be refreshed, you know, like they won't be the same old Fnatic. There'll be something different. Um, yeah, I think they'll win it pretty convincingly.
Yeah, I mean, they from what I saw, they did make quite a chunky amount of changes and did quite a hefty boot camp as well straight after the Tokonami, where I believe they also visited there as well. So, I mean, if they done all the practice where it was due, heck yeah, they're gonna raise a fair few eyebrows in regards to how massive the scoreline is going to be, probably.
I think that this is going to be such an exciting event to um I mean, it's just like we haven't seen the highest level of events at competition in so long. And to see all of these teams clash back together, obviously we've got the Fnatic roster changes that are confirmed. There's also a lot of rumors up in the air about other teams making changes. And if those rumors are true, that's also equally going to be hard on Fnatic for them to sort of come into these matches feeling prepared. So I feel like it's actually going to be really a question of who can adapt quicker, who sort of no one's really coming into these matches knowing what to expect, who can on the spot make these adaptations, and yeah, like just show up on the day. I think that's really what it's going to be about. And yeah, like I see Fnatic, I think that they have really that strong frame, and yeah, I can certainly see a world in which they really do show up in force on the day. But I can also see the opposite, where again you've got you've got to imagine Mentalist and Tex are going to be feeling immense pressure that these guys are being shown in officials for the first time. There is no mistakes. If they don't qualify here, they can't get to the Six Invitational. So you've got to imagine these players feeling a lot of pressure. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects their team play.
Yeah, I think that's hitting the nail on the head, Sky. With Fnatic coming into this, no one knows what to expect out of them. You're not going to see them counter-stratting, counter-banning in the same way that you could of the old Fnatic. But at the same time, you mentioned that there is a bit of an ANZ shuffle going on. It's all kind of under wraps at the moment. It's based on players seeing other players in scrims playing, oh, you're playing for that team now, all that kind of thing. Nothing announced as of yet. I expect we'll see those announcements coming shortly. Maybe some more roster changes will happen pending the results of these closed qualifiers. So Fnatic can't really counter VOD and counter some of these other teams as well very, very well, because these other teams are also having a lot of roster changes. So yeah, it's all about showing up on the day, all about coming in with a serious impact. That I think Fnatic have been working on their fundamentals for a long time. That's really been their priority. It worked really well for them at MEO, but having really strong fundamentals was clearly not enough for Fnatic when they played against Airwolf, because Airwolf are that team that will VOD you to the end of the earth, and they're going to be fully prepared. I mean, like that's what Glenn Lunametal, that's what he said. He said that they had so much time to practice and prep for Giants that they didn't spend enough on Dark Zero. Maybe if they had spent just as much time on Dark Zero as they had on Giants, then they would have counted them. So Fnatic, that was kind of their weakness last APAC LAN. This APAC Finals, if let's say Fnatic take first seed, they punch down all of their closest contenders of teams like Oddity in the closed qualifiers online for ANZ. They punch a ticket to the APAC LAN finals. We don't know which other teams from APAC will be there yet, but I think it's pretty safe to assume we'll likely see Norarengo or Cyclops. From SEA, from Southeast Asia, we're probably going to see Xavier, and from Korea, we're probably going to see Cloud9. So assuming we got Cloud9, Xavier, Norarengo, and Cyclops, that Fnatic are going to have to be better than. Like, how do you guys see that LAN event if it happens in that way? What are Fnatic's chances of even getting past that stage? Because it's not just this weekend with the ANZ qualifiers, it's APAC as well they have to get past.
Thumbnail?
Oh, it's kind of hard to tell. Like, I'd probably wait until they actually play the open calls. I mean, the closed calls, sorry. To make any judgment.
Yeah, I'm actually really in the same boat as you. I think it's going to be really telling this weekend. I think if they do show up in force this weekend, then I don't see any reason why they can't go out and win the APAC qualifiers. But like you mentioned, Deb, I feel like this is almost undoubtedly the strongest showing that we're going to see at one of these major / invitational qualifiers yet. We have got Fnatic potentially. We've got the other teams you listed: Cyclops, Norango, Cloud9. all potential names that we may be seeing at this LAN. So it's like, yeah, like although we're really talking about, you know, the APAC, the ANZ closed qualifiers, you know, that is absolutely not the end of the road for Fnatic. If they manage to get through that, there's still so much more for them to do.
Yeah, it's been a long road of Fnatic trying to earn that spot at Invitational, and it's still not quite there yet. And there's not just one, but two more steps they have to get past. Meanwhile, you know, a lot of other teams internationally are going to be playing for a spot at the major through their own regional qualifiers, but also through the OGA Pit Minor, which will be happening very shortly. I'm really excited for that. It's the last chance for one of the last chances for teams like G2 to earn that spot, and that's a huge, huge deal. Obviously, G2, they've also going into an event with the roster change, so it's not just APAC and ANZ that's happening this. It's a lot of regions. So yeah, I agree with you guys. It's going to be super exciting to see how this pans out. Now, since we're reserving our judgment on Fnatic until we've seen them this weekend, I bet it's a good time to say, everyone who's watching, make sure you tune into the closed qualifiers this weekend. It will be streamed to this channel, twitch.tv/rainbow6, the number 6 ANZ, and same for YouTube, Rainbow6 ANZ. It'll be on approximately 11 a.m. AEDT, Australian Eastern Daylight Time, on Saturday. That's when the tournament will start. It's going to be a huge double elimination best of 3 bracket. So all of the 5 ANZ Pro League teams who minus wildcard, so 5 ANZ Pro League teams plus the 3 teams who came out of the Open qualifier will be competing for that single spot for ANZ at the APAC qualifier, which will be happening on the 5th of January. I believe it's the 5th. And it's a huge opportunity to see these teams shine. So tune in this weekend, 11 o'clock on Saturday. You won't regret it because it's going to be super good. We're likely going to spill over onto Sunday as well, just because there's so many matches. So all weekend, so much Siege. Be there or be square. But that kind of rounds off that discussion. Did you guys want to move on to kind of our favorite picks of things this week, Cthulhu and Sky? You ready for that?
Sure.
All right, Cthulhu, why don't you take it away then?
All right, so mine was I saw this while I was in flight to Russia. It was one of the Russian / Ukrainian cosplayers that went to Russian Major League finals, and the video pretty much summarizes how I feel every time the team doesn't have a hard breacher and there's a mirror window in front of me.
Yeah, I love it. It's one thing to have cosplay; it's another thing to have like an actual mirror window. And yeah, I mean, Cthulhu, you're in Russia at the moment. If you happen to see this mirror window wherever they're keeping it, please take photos. I want to see it.
Will do.
Right.
It'll probably be all over the socials as well.
Awesome. All right, Sky. It's been a big week for Rainbow Six. It is the 4th birthday. I think you had something special to talk about in regards to that.
Yeah, so I actually found this. I think this was on the Rainbow Six Benelux Twitter earlier today, and it's literally every Siege operation ever in one photo, and it's just so incredible to see like how far we've come. As you mentioned, David, today is the 4th anniversary of Rainbow Six Siege, so it's incredibly exciting. And yeah, I mean the image on screen, like I said, just shows every operation ever, and it's just so crazy. It feels like Parabellum was 1 season ago, and you look and there's literally been, or almost been, 6 seasons since then. So, yeah, it's just crazy. It always amazes me just looking back at this, like how many seasons go by as quickly as they do.
And like, if you look at this graphic, you can kind of draw a halfway point line down like two rows down. You draw a halfway point, and that's White Noise and Chimera. That was like halfway. So if you think about it right now, like back when Operation Outbreak was a thing, when we had Operation Chimera, that was like the distance between now and then is the same distance between then and like the launch of the game. That's crazy. It has been so long since that time, and wow, the game has changed so much in the 16 seasons that we've had so far. And Shifting Tides is, I think, going to be a really exciting season to kick off the 5th year, I guess. Or not quite. We're rounding off the 4th year, but we're getting pretty darn close to year 5 now. So I'm very excited for that, and keep your eyes on the Rainbow Six Game Twitter for any updates on the Shifting Tides release date, because that'll be coming very, very shortly. I'm going to toss over to my favorite thing that I saw this week, which is related to the birthday of Rainbow Six. So there was a guy on Twitter, an Australian cosplayer. I met him at PAX this year. Lovely, lovely guy. He said, "Happy birthday to Rainbow Six game. Never did I think playing a game would bring so much opportunity and happiness into my life. Siege has given me so much: travel, self-confidence, craftsmanship, and even helped me find love. Here's to another 4 years, gamers." And Rainbow Six themselves, the official Rainbow Six Twitter, actually replied as well. So he said, "We are so glad to hear Siege has helped you in more ways than we would think. Thank you for sharing your cosplays with us and being part of the fantastic cosplay community." And that, I mean, I want, like, this is Reddit/wholesome right now. Like, this is just too wholesome for me. Jay is a really, really talented cosplayer. He does a really good buck. He's done a great bandit in the past as well. So, yeah, shout out to him. You can find him on Twitter at ZEKIIU. And if you have a Rainbow Six experience that you'd like to share with the world, toss it in chat or on Twitter, because it's a great opportunity to really do that. But yeah, that's the 4th anniversary of Rainbow Six, and that's all we've got time for tonight. So firstly, I just want to say a huge thank you, Thumbnail, for joining us tonight. It was a really great opportunity, I think, for me personally to get the chance to talk to you. Haven't really spoken to you much, and for a chance for you to talk to us about Rhythm and about your incredibly in-depth Siege knowledge as well. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
I guess I just wanted to butt in really quickly, Thumbnail. Obviously, you guys are under Rhythm. Are you guys looking for an org by any chance? And if so, how can organizations contact?
We are looking for an org. Best way to contact us is probably to hit up Wayne on Twitter at WaymanR6. Yeah.
So the newest team into the Pro League for next season is currently looking for representation. Take note, peoples. And who knows, maybe we won't be calling you Rhythm when the next season starts. I hope all the best for you in that coming season and in the coming Six Masters as well for 2020. Thumbnail, thank you so much for joining us. And that's it for tonight, guys. If you enjoyed the show, maybe you just tuned in now, you didn't see the whole thing, you can watch the VOD on YouTube, Rainbow Six ANZ, or Twitch on the Twitch VOD. We'll also have the episode up on all the podcasting platforms, iTunes, Spotify, you name it, in the coming days as well. So if you prefer an audio kind of thing, you can find us there as well. The name is Talking Siege. But that's all from tonight. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next week.